Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How are you both?
Very good. Yeah.
Can you hear me all right? Does it sound okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear myself though.
Same.
That's going to be an issue, isn't it?
Is it still?
We'll roll with it a little bit. We'll see how we get on with it, mate. And if it's too bad, then we'll try and work out something else. But good morning anyway. Welcome to the first video that we're ever doing through the Stream Stadium new channel. It is going to be a more generic football channel. So all the people that know us from over on Claret and Blue Army TV, this will be a little bit different at times. And it won't all just be West Ham United content. There will be stuff for everyone. And today, really what we want to talk about is football ownership. So we've got Johnny from Newcastle Fans TV, because I think they have similar sort of feelings as we do about our owners, and it's going to be interesting to get a few different perspectives really on the sort of, I don't know, the modern day football owners and where they get things wrong. And for me, the Premier League is a very different place to what it used to be when I was growing up, and I used to think it used to be the best brand in the world, and I think with all the foreign investment that's coming in and different ownerships, I think there's some problems that I think fans are starting to feel less connected to the football clubs like they used to be, and just trying to understand the reasons why. And is that a change that's going to be kind of what's to be expected from football now? Are we always going to be more distant from the football clubs than the old days, and is that just modern football, or are there things that can be done to try and improve that and help bring the fans closer, feel more connected, and try and get a little bit of that, I don't know, more family and local connection than what we have at the moment? So just want to bring you in, Johnny, mate, and just ask sort of what the biggest gripes are, I guess, with Newcastle fans, and why you feel like you're under bad ownership, and how's that journey been? When Mike Ashley came in, was that something that right from the start you felt that way, or did it get off onto a good footing? Because I think a lot of fans, when there's new owners, there's all that build up, that excitement. We're going to be able to do new things and bring in new players and new ambitions, and I think West Ham very much felt like that, and then as things have gone on, we've obviously gone more and more backwards, and we feel like we're in a worse place now than we were when they came in. So, yeah, how's that journey been for you?
I think from when we first started with Ashley, it was difficult because you always want to be positive. I can hear myself quite loud.
Hang on, mate.
James. Still getting a yeah.
Now you got weather.
Maybe. Anyway, morning to you all in the chat. Thanks for coming over and joining in our first show. Any ideas that you think in the future regarding all football content? It's gone, Frankie. Give us a shout. We'll be interested and we will do it.
Better chaps.
Johnny, jump on us. At us again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what Frankie was alluding to before was that when the new owners come in, you're quite excited because the fresh ideas, it's a new voice. You want to obviously see your football club improve. I think after probably the first year, Mike Ashley being in charge of Newcastle, it's all kind of gone downhill with really poor decision making and lack of communication. I think within the first 18 months, Kevin Keegan had been signed and gone. Dennis Wise had a lot to do with that as well, and buying players behind Kevin Keegan's back. But the lack of communication throughout the whole of any decisions that have been made from top to bottom is very, very disappointing because we just don't hear enough from the club. We haven't for years. There's certain little things that they might respond to, but nowhere near as enough as they should. It can be as small as ticket prices. It could be why we didn't recruit on certain windows, why certain decisions were made. And like I think probably the most recent one that probably you can remember is the Rafa Benitez one. Why was he not given a chance to continue as manager when all the fans, 99% of them, in my opinion, wanted him to stay, and there was just no ambition of the football club. That's, I think, is one big thing. Where's the ambition for a football club? Because that's what keeps you going as a fan. If you have that ambition to kind of improve, it does keep you going. If you can get from either, say, I don't know, where did we go before Ashley came? I think the season before Ashley came, I think we were about maybe 12th, 11th, something like that. Can we try and get into that top half and maybe compete for European, like Europa League or UEFA Cup, as it was known back then? I think we've had one UEFA Cup or Europa League campaign since that, where we had about 9, maybe even 10 in the last 12 years or something. So it was, it's been disappointing to say the least, but communication in any football club is massive.
Do you think it's because of the good times you had before, like in the days of Keegan, that when you was competing, do you think that's a bigger thing? You know, we see it on a different side. We've never pushed like that. You know, we ain't seen a trophy at West Ham since 1980. We've seen one cup final since, you know, and I know you've been to a few and lost, and Champions League football, pushing for league titles, you know, we ain't been that good and all, or near that, I should say. So would a lot of the disappointment with Mike Ashley be because you've experienced them times? And do you think it's a bit harsh on him in a way, that the treatment he gets, because it's not them times that you're having now? But you know, like you said earlier on, Frankie, the Premier League now isn't. It's not just football. It's a brand. It is a business. And you know, I respect these owners still. They're even as bad as ours are at West Ham, and Mike Ashley is. They're business people. They ain't bought a football club just because they want to have a football club. They bought it as a business, and they're making money. That you have to respect, because that's what it's there for.
I think it's a little bit different though, Baz, with football clubs, because obviously people are emotionally involved in these businesses. You can call them businesses. Well, I call them football clubs because that's what they are for me anyway. But when an owner makes a decision based for business reasons rather than for football reasons, then you're obviously going to be a bit agitated by it. Now, I completely get your point that they're there to make money. Of course they are. But the money's almost like second hand now, because you can you're guaranteed a certain income from TV money anyway. Literally, as long as you're in that Premier League, and like, look at the size of clubs of Newcastle and West Ham, if you've got that TV Premier League money, that is huge. It's massive. Now, for us, we would just want to see, well, we've got this money. Can we do something with it a little bit more, rather than just holding back and holding back and holding back? Now, I would say in the last 12 months, we have obviously spent a little bit more money. I think our budget was about 35 million this summer, and we've spent all 35. So to the credit this summer, they've kept the word. But in other previous windows and other transfer windows, it has been difficult. But going back to your point from, you were saying, obviously, because Newcastle fans experience obviously some better times under Keegan and Boy Robson, and obviously we had nights against likes of Barcelona, we won 3-2 at St James and things like that. People are obviously going to remember that, and they want to try and relive that. I think that's just normal. But I'm not saying that Mike actually should have guaranteed us to try and play the likes of Barcelona and teams like that. No. But can you show that you're trying to get to there? Can you try to get to, say, even your UEFA Cup? Is that unrealistic? I don't personally think so. It's just look, my expectation as a fan of Newcastle is different to maybe another person. But it's just about perception, really, of what you think your football club should kind of, not deserve, but can realistically get to.
What do you think you deserve?
I think challenging for Europa League football, I think, for a club like us, is not unrealistic. Now, is that somewhere between 7th, 8th, 9th? I think that's reasonable, considering you look at the teams in the last, say, 10 years that have been in that, around about that 7th, 8th, and 9th. I think that's realistic for a club like Newcastle. Now, I'd even argue say it's the same for like West Ham, that round about that top half. But that could be completely different to another guy. He might say, well, actually, no, we've played Champions League, we've played Europa League a lot more times. Can we not get a little bit higher than that? But I think for where we are, and considering other owners that have invested a lot of money, like say Chelsea's and Man City's in particular, Man City weren't really a threat to anybody 15 years ago. Now that they are a massive threat, you've got, I think, maybe 7th, 8th, and 9th is probably where Newcastle can realistically go to.
So it's really interesting what's just come about there, and the conversation's kind of gone in a place that I didn't really expect it to. So I'm going to ask two questions. Well, it's the same question, but to both of you, and then I'm going to ask a counter question to see where your minds then go after that. And so, Johnny, you've just said that your expectation is probably between sort of 9th and 7th in the league at the moment. That's where you think Newcastle should be finishing, yeah?
If we can say spend our money realistically and everything goes according to plan, then I can't see why not we can't be looking at, say, 9th, 10th, a tiny bit higher. But again, when you see the amount of investment with other clubs, 7th is probably my extreme realistic view.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And for you, Baz, where do you think, you as a fan, where do you want West Ham to be right now? If you felt, where should West Ham, not just where should West Ham finish with the current squad and with how things are at the moment, but from your mind, with where we are as a club now, with the financial resources we've got, with the stadium that we've got, and all of those other bits and pieces, take out all the problems that we know, where do you think West Ham should be as a football club? Where would you be happy to finish in the Premier League?
I'd be happy to finish top, but safely anywhere above 15th and be an established Premier League club, not in a relegation battle. That's my belief on West Ham. I don't run away with West Ham or a top 10 side. I think they have the capability to, with what's around them now. I don't believe they are. I think they've proven not to be. I look, like Johnny just said a minute ago, you look at teams in the Premier League and Newcastle should be 7th or 9th. Give the top 6 straight away. You've got to add Leicester into that 7th and 9th category. Now, and they've a right to be there. They've won the Premier League. They've come and overtaken both of our clubs. Wolves, they're doing it. It's not right, but it's real.
Everton as well.
So all of a sudden, that top 10 gets harder to get in. We're all sat here saying we should be here. Crystal Palace ain't fought relegation battles. Their fans would sit here and tell us we're better than both of you. We don't get in relegation battles, blah, blah, blah. So for me, realistically, surviving in the Premier League with the ownership we've got.
No, we didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said, where would you be happy to be as a West Ham United fan right now? Where do you want to finish in the league?
If West Ham finished 10th or above any season, I'd be over the moon.
Okay, so we've just got on to quite an interesting point really quickly with football clubs ownership. And the first place we've gone to in this conversation is where you want to finish in the league table. Is that the be all and end all? Because that's really interesting to me, because I don't care really where I finish as a football supporter. I've been through the good times, the bad times. I've been through the relegations, and some of the best seasons I've had as a West Ham United fan was in the lower leagues. And you get days out to Cardiff and you get to play our finals and you actually win games and you're challenging for big top finishes. And I've enjoyed those times. So for me, where I finish in the league isn't the most important. But the first thing we've touched upon today is the expectations finish of where your club will finish in the league. Does it then not matter who we have as football owners if you finish where you want to and your expectations as a fan? So obviously Newcastle are going through this takeover, the Saudi group at the moment. Are you happy to have no identity, no brand? If someone come in tomorrow and they said, right, you're now, Newcastle Red Bull, and we're completely going to change everything in your club, but you're going to finish 7th next season, is that good enough?
It depends, because this is what I've talked about the communication before. Now, I don't think anybody would want a name change. I don't think it's very rarely happened that there's been a name change, as in Newcastle Red Bulls or something like that, or West Ham Red Bulls, because I know obviously there's been rumours with that. I don't think that would go according to plan. I don't think that would be necessary, in my opinion. But if that was done, I don't think anyone would be happy about that. I certainly wouldn't, for my club. But you talk about this, the fact that league position, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter who your owners are, if as long as they're doing what you think they should be doing. But if they say, for example, God forbid, West Ham finish 18 and then get stuck in the Championship for 10 seasons, would you still be happy? Because you would want those kind of bigger days back, if that makes sense.
How many seasons did you have when you went down last time?
1.
Only one. So was there ever a point where you were stuck down there any longer than that, or did you always bounce straight back like we did?
Not in my lifetime.
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? What about for you, Basil? If say it was West Ham Red Bull and the next owners who come in made that big change and West Ham got into European football and you went to a quarter-final of a European Cup, is that acceptable for you, or will that just be a further, I guess, demolish of the West Ham brand as we knew it when we loved the club?
Well, West Ham's changed already. West Ham changed 4 years ago. So for me, it's completely irrelevant now. And this is where I can't compare West Ham to Newcastle with ownership, because we've had everything taken from us. You know, if West Ham become West Ham RB tomorrow, what's the difference? We're now West Ham London. You know, we've already had the name change. We've already had our home taken from us on promises. As a West Ham fan, you made the great point, and someone else wrote it in the comments. Mate, I wouldn't care if we was in the Championship. I wouldn't care if we was in League One. It's irrelevant. Right now, it's different because of what we've lost for where we are. That's why it's unacceptable, and that's why I believe West Ham are a Premier League Premiership club, and should be. But if West Ham finish 17th now, that's enough for our ownership. Totally enough. And that's the difference. That is more than enough for them. It doesn't matter about anything else. If new owners walked into West Ham tomorrow, there'd be a different thing. It wouldn't matter to Red Bull that West Ham only finished 17th. That's a bad season. They'd want to be at West Ham competing, and they'd want to push the club forward. Then all of a sudden your expectations change. I don't expect nothing of West Ham, not under these, because I've no confidence or faith in them. So for me, the change would be right now irrelevant. Nothing can ever give me back the West Ham that I always supported and grew up supporting. Nothing can change that. It's gone. As sad as it is, it's gone. The only thing that's left is the fan base. That won't ever change. It will get a little bit different, but it won't ever go completely. That will always still be there. But if it changed tomorrow to RB West Ham, mate, it would mean nothing to me. I wouldn't sit here, oh, we've had our name changed. We've had it done already. West Ham United Football Club, the club I grew up supporting from a kid, died the day we left Upton Park. 2 people are responsible for that. That's why I can't compare West Ham to Newcastle owners. Can't compare West Ham to Sunderland. They still have everything. And I would swap shoes with any Sunderland fan right now to be a West Ham fan, still watching my club at Upton Park, with what it meant, rather than watching West Ham London at the London Stadium.
I do get what you're saying there, but the only difference really between, like, Sunderland moved from, you know, their old style football ground that they felt was a proper football stadium, and they moved into the Stadium of Light, which obviously we can't speak for Sunderland fans. We will have an opportunity to get them on at some point, and we've spoken to them before. And I get that, it is theirs, but like the Emirates is Arsenal's ground, but they hate that. So it's interesting that stadium move. Was that absolutely the reason why West Ham is completely a shadow of what you remember it being? Or if you'd have moved into that Olympic Stadium, but it was purpose built and it was a proper football stadium, do you feel that you'd feel differently right now? Is it because you've just said it died when we left Upton Park? Well, the only change between then and now is the stadium that we play in. So
and the name of the club, the way it's run.
Well, the name is the same. I understand it's on the badge, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because we're on a neutral channel. So, but the name is still West Ham United. I know they've slapped London on the badge for branding reasons, and this is the beautiful thing for me, is that you've got all these people who think that they're these really clever, intelligent business people outside of football. They come into football, they think they understand how to build a brand, and I actually think they end up doing a worse job than when football was just football. The Premier League used to be the most fantastic brand in the world, and it was incredible. And the badge used to be fantastic. The football used to be fantastic. Everything about the Premier League, I felt, was absolutely just incredible. Even if you watch Premier League years and you watched the Sky Live Saturday shows, they were unbelievable. You used to be excited to watch them. The build up, everything that they did was fantastic. Now they've tried to create this brand. I think it's gone backwards, and I think that's more what's happened with West Ham. I think, I do think it's still West Ham United. Yes, they've put that silly London London on the badge, but it's all branding. And I think what they've got wrong is they tried to create a brand with West Ham and didn't realise, actually, we're just a working class club. We're working class people. And we're never going to be attractive to someone who's living out in wherever, in Japan. And I know we've got some hammers out there, but do you know what I mean?
You can make it so simple with these. We didn't move from Upton Park for the benefit of the football club. We moved for their benefit. Sunderland left Roker Park for the benefit of Sunderland Football Club to a bigger stadium. They competed in the Premier League. They done well. I know they're having bad times now, but mate, we would have had bad times at Upton Park if Magnuson, like we did before Golden Sullivan come in, when Magnuson and all the money run out. If we had left Upton Park to the London Stadium, purposely built for football or not, to own it for that football club, it would have been different. We've seen every single reason why we've moved. Let me ask you a question. Would West Ham have moved into that London Stadium for 60,000 fans, like they've told us, if we had to pay £20 million a year rent? I don't believe.
No, of course not. No, I agree with that.
Fair enough, because it's all beneficial for them.
It's become clearer now that it was never to do with the progression of West Ham, because we're absolutely not financially better off now than we were when we was at Upton Park. So if you're not going to be better off in any way, shape or so, not only do we not have a better financial benefit, not only have we not been able to attract world-class players or a better calibre of player, not only do we now we don't even own our grounds, so we can't make decisions, we can't make changes without having to get it authorised and so on. It definitely has brought zero benefit to West Ham. Like there's nothing that I could say that stadium has brought as a positive to West Ham United Football Club. So it definitely was only. We all know what they believed they would get out of it. They felt that they would end up owning that stadium because it was a drain on taxpayers' money. I think they felt there'd be a bit of public uproar about it, and I think they would have turned around by now and said, "Look, take that stadium off us, 4x, a nothing price." They own that. That's probably the most prime real estate in London at the moment. I mean, it's a huge bit of land that is a massively up and coming area. It must be worth a fortune, and that was their plan. It was to own that, and once they own that, the club was then worth 800 million. The problem is they haven't. Yeah, it was for them. I absolutely agree.
And that's why I can never compare us to Newcastle or Sunderland. No one. I'll tell you what I can compare us to: Wimbledon. I can compare us to that. I don't want to see West Ham break away and have an AFC West Ham. No, I don't want to see that. Not all the while the football club's going. But when Wimbledon left Plough Lane and got moved to Milton Keynes, that wasn't for Wimbledon.
That's great, really.
It's disgusting. It shouldn't happen. And West Ham should not have been taken from Upton Park to a rented home. It's not for what they're telling us now. It's wrong. And when they sit and say, as owners of the football club, we want to go here so we compete with the elite. Mate, teams like Arsenal have moved from Highbury to the Emirates, haven't won the Premier League since they've moved. Teams like Tottenham have now gone from White Hart Lane, built their ground up, don't win trophies. No, it's not about having this big flash ground. Leicester City have won the Premier League with a 35,000-seater stadium. Fact. Complete enough. Bournemouth survived in the Premier League for how many years? With 11,000 fans. This move was everything for their own gain, not the football clubs. The football club losing is everything that's wrong. I can't sit here and tell you I know how Sunderland feel. I don't. I would swap with any one of them now and be more than happy to be watching West Ham in League One at Upton Park than watching West Ham in the Premier League fake at the London Stadium. I cannot pay into the scam. The scam is everything that's wrong with West Ham now. So if Red Bull want to come in tomorrow, change the name, do whatever, don't even change the ground. It's irrelevant. All of them things now are irrelevant. West Ham was murdered in May 2016.
Right, so flipping it a little bit, Johnny, and we said sort of between 9th and 7th you wouldn't be happy with being Newcastle, Red Bull, but if you was going to be Champions League competing, you was going to be competing to win the Premier League again, On that basis, would that change your mind?
It would. A name change is huge. A name change is huge. Look, a stadium move is very difficult to take, and I can completely get what you're saying. But a name change I think, is a little bit different.
Did you feel the same way when I don't know, do you feel your stadium name was changed? I mean, do you feel like that's changed, or to everyone is it still just St James's Park? Because to me it's St James's Park.
It's gone back to St James's Park, fortunately, because when we were, I think there was some advertising up for sale, and I think I don't know who it was at the time, the name forgets me now, but when they bought that advertising, the stadium name was part of the advertising, and they actually said, look, everyone knows it as St James's Park. We're not going to change that, so we'll just leave it at that. And I think if Newcastle moved down the road and moved to Jesmond or Gosford, where there's a lot of land, then and they change the name and they change it to whatever their company is called, I don't think there'll be that much uproar because it's a different ground, it's a different place. It's like if you moved house, you live on a different street. You're not going to call it the same street, are you? So name change for me is difficult. I can't accept a name change. I know it's a little bit different for yourselves because you, in your opinion, and I know Baz is very passionate about it, where he thinks that the soul's been ripped out of West Ham anyway. I even think West Ham could do little things now, and I think it would not considerably help things, but it would help little bits. Like even just putting East London on the badge would be a good start, just to kind of say, look, this is our origins of what West Ham are all about. By the way, it's not just the whole of London, because how many clubs are in London, for goodness sake. But there are little things they could do just to kind of help things along the way. But no, I could not get on board with a name change. That would really, I think, suffer a lot of Newcastle fans, because if it is, say, changed from Newcastle United to say Newcastle Red Bulls and the United had gone, I think that's just as bad. I really do, because that's what you stand for. That's what you stand for. Your club's name was already done before you were born. Essentially, you're just given that. You go, who do you support? Newcastle United, Newcastle. That's it. It's the same West Ham. Look, so I couldn't do a name change for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing, we sort of touched upon league position just a second ago, and the last thing that I want to say on that before we move on, I think for both of our sets of fans at the moment, we feel our owners are happy with 17th. And it probably feels like our plan, and Baz will get your point on that as well, feel like 17th is always the goal for us. Do you think that's the goal for Newcastle, or do you think that would be acceptable to the owners? Is that where their ambition is, or do you think that's just what they'd accept? That's
the goal for Ashley, yeah, for sure. But I don't. If I was a businessman, I wouldn't want to be. If that was me, I wouldn't want to be doing that. If you're just looking to stay 17th, there's still a chance you could finish 18th, and that's it. You're back in the championship. Go higher. What
you've just said there is exactly the point that I want to make. If you set a goal in any aspect of life, you never set it to be the minimum that you need to just scrape through, and you just don't do it. If you're setting up as a business owner, if you need £100,000 turnover in a year to cover your costs, you don't set your goal at 100,000, because if you come up short, you're in trouble. So you'd always set it to 150. If you come up short, it's 120, but you're still more than in the clear. I just don't understand this mentality from football clubs owners at the moment that let's just go for 17th, because how many times do we see it when year by year a club is just about getting away with it, just about surviving? Eventually, the inevitable happens and they go down. And we feel like, I think that's what we've been risking the past couple of years. So I don't understand why clubs don't aim for 10th. And if you come up short and you finish 15th, it's not the end of the world.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, because owners will look at it now, and I think this is probably how Ashley and maybe other clubs around that sort of kind of area will look at it and go, well, the top six aren't moving. Leicester, because of them winning the league, have spent a lot more money and have got a lot more money, and they've got very rich owners. You then look at the likes of Everton, who will always be in the Premier League, don't really get involved in relegation battles. So there's 8 or 9 places. Wolves spent a lot of money.
Everton were involved in one last year. Look what their owner's done.
Oh, yeah.
Look at them now. They was rock bottom of the league when they appointed Ancelotti. They didn't gamble. They didn't go, we're going to get a journeyman, like, example, Alan Pardew, one of them. I'll go and get the best one of the best that's out there, because they want that football club to do well. That's the difference in ownership, wanting and hoping. And
that's the ambition, though. That's the ambition that she spoke about before. Exactly. we're going, right, we're not settling for the 17th. We're
Mhm.
trying to get higher.
Mhm.
But going back to that point, though, I was about to say with now there's Wolves, that's 10 teams. So now you've got 10 teams left. So you've got the 3 promoted teams. There's always one team that does quite well. That makes it down to 9. You've got the likes of Palace, Southampton, and never really get involved in relegation battles. Southampton have probably had maybe 1, 2 in the last 7 or 8 years. So there's down to 6 clubs. So it's getting lower and lower and lower. And they're going, right, we need to make sure that we're at the top of those 6 clubs. And I think that's why he's gone for, can we finish 17th or higher? And obviously for us, we've finished, I think, 13th for the last 2 years and 10th. For us, under the Ashley era, we're overachieving. In the Ashley era, we're overachieving for what we're spending and what we're doing as a football club. But I don't know. Will it change? I don't know. If we finish 13th again this year, we'll probably have overachieved again, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mate, I agree with what you're saying, and I'll be honest. And this is no disrespect to Leicester, no disrespect to Palace, Southampton, any of them, Newcastle, any of them clubs. Before a ball's kicked, and before you look at what owns a football club, what squads are, if you said to me West Ham and Crystal Palace, might be biased because I'm a West Ham fan, but I think many would say West Ham are probably the better club and bigger club out of the 2. So you'd expect them to be higher. And I'd think the same with Southampton. If you can but we don't compete with them. But that's all down to ambition. I don't think David Gold or David Sullivan plan to finish 17th. I don't think that whatsoever. I think they hope, and we've heard that, and I think they believed their own lies when they said we're going to try and push to get into European football and have European football at the London Stadium. I think they believe their own rubbish when they talk like that. You can only do that competing well, having good investment, having good management. No disrespect to any of the other players at West Ham, but there's much better players that could get an outside. There's much better owners. There's much better coaches. And I'll say it, and after watching on Monday, what they've done shocked me. They were superb. And I see Jez Bissie's comment in here, should we get Zidane? No, we shouldn't. Because I don't think it matters who you get as manager at West Ham with that ownership. They won't succeed. There's a big difference in having a good manager and backing a good manager. There's your difference. You could have the best, but if you give them nothing, you're going to get nothing in return. Not a thing. So what we've got is probably the best West Ham could get right now. We had Pellegrini, a proven winner, to a degree. He had won the Premier League. I'm not saying he's the best, but he had his job taken away from him, from the people above him, because they control so much. So much. And that's the difference.
It was the same with us with Benitez. It was the same with us with Benitez.
And it doesn't matter how good that manager is. If, as an owner of a football club, you don't give that person the free role to do his job, you're not going to get the best out of him. Mate, if you work for me as, I don't know, a lorry driver, and I'm telling you what ways to go, but you know better, it ain't going to work. Things don't work if you don't do it your own way.
You couldn't afford me, Buzz.
Well, I probably couldn't.
Do you know what? I think there's, while I do agree with that, I think there's a slightly different take that I would have on that. And while I think, yes, you need a manager who is allowed to have his say and certainly make a decision with the owners of your football club, if you've got a plan of how you want your football club to be, if you as a football owner have got a 5-year, 10-year plan, and you've got a director of football, someone who wants to play in a certain way, you should appoint a manager, one, that fits the style and the ambition of the way that you want your football club to be. But you shouldn't let that manager then go and totally change your team and go and start buying players that don't fit that ethos of what you want to do as a football club for the next 5 to 10 years, because that is where you get it wrong. I think the thing that you want to see, or what I want to see from my football club, is if we want to play in a certain way, that should come from the top down. The manager that you appoint should play that style of football. And if a manager wants a certain player, you should be sitting down and you should have a scouting network who come in and say, look, these are all the players that I think will perfectly fit into the weak positions that we've got as a football club at the moment. Who do we want out of there? But if the manager had just put their hand up at random and picked some player out and comes in and goes, I want to sign this guy, you're playing silky football, but he wants to go and sign Andy Carroll, that ain't going to work. So you don't want to go and sign that player. So you should be turning around to that manager and saying, hold up. Because how many times have we seen it? Look at what Harry Redknapp done at West Ham, mate. He brought in whoever he wanted to have a bit of a fiddle and get some cash and be involved in deals and everything else. So while the manager, yes, I agree, has to be massively involved and be the person who's putting the plan together, I do think there needs to be a level above that has this plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And they are making sure that everything that the manager does fits in with that ambition of that football club, because managers do come and go, whether we like it or not. That's how the reality of football is these days.
Mate, I completely agree. I think you bang on the money with what you've just said there. And that's why a good director of football works at clubs, because it gives you that plan and that drive for the future. And just touching quickly on another comment from Jez Bish, we sound like Man United fans wanting fortunes spent on players. Trust me, mate, I don't want West Ham to spend fortunes on players. Never have. I made that clear on TalkSport last week. I wouldn't care if West Ham spent 3 million or 30 million. Help your manager. He's desperate. He needs cover. And whether you can only spend 3 million or 300, as I just said, help him. We ain't helped, mate. We're 6 days away from a window shutting. If you think that's ambition and that's caring and backing your manager, you're mistaken. I'm sorry, but you're very, very much mistaken.
There's a breaking point, though, isn't there, for West Ham in particular in these next 6 days, because there's multiple reports about Declan Rice with Chelsea. Now, if West Ham come back and go, we could potentially sell him for good money here. Chelsea are willing to pay it. It means that we could try and maybe reinvest a little bit of it. The problem is Moyes is stuck between a rock and a hard place on this one. Because I think with a lot of media reports, if that bid comes in and West Ham go, they're really close to the asking price. What do they do?
Do you know the difference, Johnny? Right, and this is where it's summed up. Our owners, or one of our owners, has been on TalkSport, a nationwide show. Everybody listens to it, whether you're a West Ham fan or not. He has been on there telling the world he's skint. And West Ham Football Club have no transfer budget. And we can't spend it all on one player. This is the same player he bid 4 times for, but got knocked back because he didn't meet the valuation. So it was one of them cases we tried. Do you think Chelsea is stupid? They've heard this. Why would they bid at the and this isn't the first time he's done it. Why would they make an offer at the start of the window? They do all their other business, and West Ham has still got him. They'd be desperate now with only 2 or 3 days to go. What I do is we go into them. They wanted 50 million. We're at them with 40. They'd be so tempted. We'll get him for 45. And what we ain't done in that time still, strengthened our own thing. So when that money eventually comes with a day, 2 days, maybe the last day, that's the only time we've got left to do business, because that's the only time we've got money. It's disgusting. They have run the football club into the ground. Completely and utterly into the ground. Massively. And even if they sold him today and got £50 million paid in their bank account today, I could guarantee you David Moyes wouldn't see that money for himself. He'd be told who he could and couldn't buy.
Yeah.
He might get one choice, but that'd be, we redo this and make you, again, the same guy makes a comment about them buying players and they've spent money. They've spent money 2 years ago. They still owe. Let Chelsea take Declan Rice today and pay us in 2 years. I bet that ain't allowed.
No.
It's disgusting, mate. They're completely and utterly filth what they've done to West Ham. They have destroyed the football club on and off the pitch. And that's the worst thing about it for me.
And for yourself, Johnny, and obviously Baz has got some real sort of feelings there, to be honest. And I don't quite feel as bad. I do feel West Ham United is still bubbling there, and I feel West Ham will rise again once these people are gone. But we do need to put pressure on them in that way to try and push them out of the football club, because they are, really and truly pushing us so far backwards. And I am concerned that when they leave, that we'll have no assets, no money, we'll have nothing, and we could be left in a really bad position. And especially with the way things are at the moment, you don't want to see your club in that sort of trouble. And the problem with us is we not only have they done that to us, but we're not attractive to an investor either, because we don't own nothing. With yourselves, you're valuing yourself at 300 million, but you've got a massive stadium in the middle of a town centre, a huge city, and you sort of have got a bit more structure around you, and we're valuing ourselves at 800 million with no assets whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense. So, if we did fall upon financial hardship and bad times, it is a concern that anyone who's got their right mind as a business owner would look at it and think, that's not a good place to put my money. And the problem is, football isn't in a place now where a fan can take over the club, because normally there's too much money involved for someone to go, like, it's not like Tony Cottee. He's tried to put his consortiums together a million times. Tony Cottee's never going to be an owner of West Ham United Football Club. He's not rich enough. Only the richest people can afford it now. So it's not like someone's going to jump in and go, I'll save you, and put in my 20 million. It's hundreds and hundreds of millions we're talking now. So that's my worry, is that we could be left in a place that we can't get back from.
People compare West Ham to Newcastle with the ownership, right? The only thing I'll say, how many times did West Ham show interest in Callum Wilson? There's a reason there's a reason players don't want to join the club. And it's even more obvious now when you see the club captain send a tweet this summer about a player that's been kicked out of the club. It's even more. Someone asked yesterday, can Declan Rice refuse the transfer? Of course he can. Grady Diangana said he didn't want to go. But it's irrelevant what these people think. The only people who have the final say are them two at the top. And all the while they're there, the football club is run terribly, and it will remain that way, in my opinion. And Jez, again, mate, Jez, I'm not picking on you, but I understand your points. What you're saying with Rice, I'd agree with you. If West Ham got £60 million for Declan Rice, his value paid today, and David Moyes was given 20 million to go and buy 3 players at £20 million each, I'd say it's good business. You and I both know deep down that is not going to happen. So it's not even worth talking about, because there'll be some sort of excuse why it don't happen as well. They've proved themselves time and time again. And if you still believe there's part of them that care about this football club and not their bank balances, again, mate, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah. I think obviously with us, in a way, it's different, because obviously it's been, obviously, I think 13 years. I think it's a long time to have any club, to be honest. I think unless, like, Steve Gibson's the one I can use with Middlesbrough. He saved the club from liquidation. He was just a fan. He was just a fan.
Hang on, mate.
And he's just literally, he's been with that club, and he's always made the right decisions. Or maybe not, I think right's probably the wrong word, sorry. He's always made the sensible decisions. So there's been some decisions that I don't think Middlesbrough fans have greatly understood, but they've accepted it because they've been given a reason why. And I think that's why Middlesbrough, for example, yes, they're in the Championship, and for the last 10, 15 years, they've had a cup, like maybe the odd season in the Premier League, but even though they've predominantly been a Championship club, he's still really liked up there.
I was just about, how long has he been there?
20 odd years minimum. 20 odd
Never
years.
once seen a protest for him to get kicked out of the club. Never once in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough did, to be fair, try and roll the dice once upon a time when they signed your Jorginhos and your Ravanellis, and they signed all these players. But again,
they won the European Cup, didn't they?
They got to the final, but they won the League Cup.
Yeah, they've won trophies with him.
It's the only trophy they've won. It's the only trophy they've won in their history was under him.
It was bad business, though. And I put a lot of the reason why they are where they are now is because of that massive sort of contracts that they had with wages for slightly over the hill has-been type players. I think they well overpaid for some of those people. And it completely backfired.
Where do you see Middlesbrough as a football club? In the Premier League? Should they be a Premier League club? I can think of 20 bigger clubs than them. I think they're at their level, if I'm honest.
I think it's borderline. I think you could argue either way, in my opinion. But then again, I'm slightly biased as a North East lad. I'd like to see Middlesbrough and back in just to
I would
say Middlesbrough is certainly a bigger club than Fulham by a mile.
I don't doubt that, but I think Sheffield Wednesday are a bigger club than both. But I don't think it matters now.
I agree with that. I do agree.
And that's my point. I don't think being a bigger club makes you up there. I don't think Middlesbrough, if you picked a Premier League team, or a league, sorry, with everyone on the same part, Middlesbrough wouldn't be in the top 20 for me.
It's close in League One. There's close in League One. Like we're talking about, I'm not just saying it, but Sunderland are a bigger club than Middlesbrough. Ipswich are a bigger club than Middlesbrough. Exactly. I'd even argue to say Middlesbrough and Portsmouth are more or less. You could argue. Like Portsmouth won an FA Cup not long ago. So look, there's clubs in lower leagues that are probably bigger than some of the Championship clubs. Like Ipswich are bigger than Bournemouth. So Sunderland are bigger than Bournemouth.
Not in the Forest.
Forest are a huge club.
When was the
Bigger than
last
probably all
time
we
they
put
won the Premier
together.
League? I don't think they've been in the Premier League for the last 10 years, have they?
20 years, Forest, I think.
There you go.
So, but that just it shows you, doesn't it?
And that's what I mean. So I think you're right, Frankie. I think he did take a gamble with that. But I don't. If they were now in League Two in trouble, maybe like Bolton. Bolton's probably a good example. Bolton done it, and Bolton are banging trouble now. That's probably a different side. But but you've seen protests all the time about their chairman. Even ones that have come in, get them out. We need someone else. Blah blah blah. I've never seen it with Steve Gibson. All I've ever seen is respect for Middlesbrough fans, and maybe that's because he's black and white. It is.
Oh, don't say that.
And that's definitely no. They'd hate to be black and white. I think the whole point, and this is brilliant because it's perfectly going to bring me on to the point that we wanted to move on to, and we need to move on to that fairly quickly now. But I'm not saying that I would have had a protest against him because he rolled the dice and had a go. I would rather see your club have a go, get it wrong, and end up not in a good position than do nothing. And this is what we were saying. Do you want to just try and play that 17th card, or would you rather see him try and have some ambition, try and do something? And if it backfires, it backfires. But at least you had a go. And I think that is the point. But we've stumbled across there loads of different feelings about, how we think football clubs should be. And Johnny's already mentioned it today as well. It's about communication. And we've just said that upon Middlesbrough. If you go and have a go and it fails, and your owner comes out and holds his hands up and say, do you know what, I got that wrong. We've overspent. We had too many big players on too many big contracts. We've got to go back to the drawing board and start again. And this is what we're going to do to try and rebuild. And it has meant that we've had to drop down a division to do that, or even 2 divisions. But we are going to bring in the right scouting systems. We're going to try and bring in the right players for the job. And we're going to try and build something over the next 10 years to turn ourselves into the football club that we all want again. I think that's key. And that communication, I think you'd accept that because mistakes do happen. I think it's a lot of the time it's when, we see owners of football clubs hiding and not having the respect to come out and tell us. I think that's where the problem really does. He's only got a black and white cat and all, look. It didn't even have black on it. He spray painted that on there just so it's a Newcastle cat, isn't he? That's what he's done. So it moves me on to the point with supporters groups. And Johnny, does Newcastle have supporters groups in place at the moment?
We have a supporter trust. It's the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, and they're basically our voice for fans. So basically, if they ever put up some sort of if they want any questions answered by the club have to answer to them. Simple as that. They have to answer to them. It's part of the rules that the Premier League have got in place. If you've got any supporters trusts, they have to answer. They have to give you some sort of answer to a question. Now, some of them are on the record. A lot of it's off the record. We've spoken to the chairman of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, Alex Hayes, been on our channel numerous times, and I would say 90% of what he gets told is off the record. So there's certain stuff that he can't even tell us, but he can ask the question. The problem is, though, Newcastle only speak to him. It's just one person, and as I've mentioned before, it's like if you used to and then supporters trust and say Frankie was in charge of it, and David Sullivan tells everyone.
Frankie, can you put me backstage 1 minute? I've just got a HMR people.
So then, and it would be a case of he can only tell you what's going on, but couldn't tell Baz, and it's difficult. So we've got, I think, over 15,000 members, or 14,000 members on the NUST now. Every one of them is going to have a different opinion, Frankie, and it looks like now with the takeover there was a lot more communication with the Premier League because they had to give some sort of reason, or they had to give some sort of explanation of why that whole process was a lot longer than it should have been. But when there's ever anything that's been towards the club, they've asked the question, they've asked why certain decisions have happened, and they have had a couple of answers, but they want a lot more answers. A lot of the answers haven't been good enough. When normally the club have tried to, over the years, they've tried to have like a meeting, like maybe 3 or 4 times a year, where they'll discuss certain things. It could be things surrounding the football club, off the pitch, on the pitch. I think it's now been once in the last 2, maybe 3 years. I can remember a meeting with, I think there was a couple of meetings with when Rafa was in charge, and I think they've had 1 meeting since. Now, that's not good enough. That's not the communication you want at a football club. You want to have that not asking for the perfect relationship, because I don't think that exists, but a stronger relationship, a better relationship. Now, what this new consortium wanted to do was that they were speaking to they were speaking to the NUST, they were speaking to local businesses, they were speaking to the people about the city. They wanted to they did their research, and they wanted to try and say, well, what makes Newcastle tick, and what do they want to keep them happy? It wasn't necessarily finishing in a certain place in the league. It was, what does the city buzz from? What do they want in the next, say, short, medium, long-term future of the football club? So that was what was probably more important to us, but we just don't get that communication with the people that are in charge now. And I think even if they did a little bit more communication with the club, I think it would help, because at the minute, there's not a lot of bad noise around Ashley at the minute, because everyone thought this takeover was getting done. No fault of his, and no Newcastle fan had said it was any fault to Mike Ashley, because he'd done everything. It was the Premier League, or basically rejecting it without rejecting it, if that makes sense. So if they came out with a little bit more communication now about certain things, I think that would help. But I think Ashley is a bit like Golden Sullivan. Unless it goes through him and he decides what he wants to do. If it's not good for him, he won't do it.
Do you feel that trust at the moment does actually give you a voice? And this is a personal thing. Do you feel that yourself, you do have a route to raise your opinions and things that you, not necessarily always issues, but any thing that you've got that's sort of sitting on your mind at any particular time? Do you feel that trust does give you the route to have your say, or do you feel like it's there just for good show, and it doesn't really change anything?
Well, I wasn't too sure on them, to be honest with you, about a couple of years ago, because I just thought, well, can they actually do anything? Now, doing a bit more research and looking into it, and the fact that we've got a bit more of a better relationship with them as a channel, they do a lot more than we actually think. And there has been a change of ownership, a change of the chair, and that was Alex Hurst. And Alex is doing a great job, by the way. He does a lot of work which people don't see. Now, I think for me personally, if I had a problem with the club, I would do it in a slightly different way. But with the amount of opinion polls and emails you get on certain issues, these are spoken to some of the potential owners of the football club, and literally sent us an email pretty much what they've said. There's a couple of things they can't say for obvious reasons, but they've more or less kind of emailed us saying, look, these are the questions that got asked. We've also spoken to the Premier League. This is the whole entirety of the meeting with the Premier League. These are the questions we asked as we spoke to you about it, or spoke to all the members about it, because these are the sort of issues that we wanted to raise with. So that communication is what's lacking at the top of the football club. The NUST are doing brilliant with the members they've got, and it's obviously not as much as the whole fan base of Newcastle, but I think it's £1 a year for your membership to get your opinion.
How was the trust chosen? Who is it who's put them into place?
I've done in terms of the actual people you get elected. So there are new elections, and I think you get re-elected every either year or 2 years. I know there's a couple of people that on our channel that have tried to get into being elected, or obviously to see if anybody thinks that they should be elected. So that's a process at the minute. So we'll obviously find out how well they get on. But I think whoever comes in, it's just a kind of, can you make sure that certain questions are getting asked, and can you continue the relationship that you have with the members? And at the minute, it is working. There's been a massive increase in members in the last year. I think.
You certainly have a better setup there than ours. I mean, ours, we've got an official supporters board who are basically chosen by the club. Why you want your club to choose the people who are representing the fans, that's wrong in itself and lacks transparency massively. We have other supporters groups as well who are not really elected by fans, and I don't feel give us a voice. I've never seen them reach out to me as a fan to have my opinion or my say on any matter. So I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with supporters groups. I think the one that you've got there certainly sounds like one of the better ones, but still not perfect. I don't actually think it should be that difficult if someone really wanted to do it the way it should be done. And like you said, you can't ask every single person individually what their opinions are. It's impossible because there's too many. However, if you set up a system where if a point was raised and you had a way of communicating with your supporters group or trust or whatever it may be, the second that a particular topic is raised 10 times, that should immediately trigger that conversation to then be had at the next committee meeting, and that should be raised. And every time that process goes through, that's what should be done. And it should be transparent. I understand if a club's going through a takeover and there's financial numbers that are put in there, you can't put that into the minutes of a meeting. But if the supporters trust our meeting away from the club, I think every single thing should be documented and it should be published online for all the members to see, because I think they have a right to know what's being discussed as a committee of the group. And then if they do go into a meeting with the club, anything that isn't confidentiality issues, anything that's not under an NDA, anything that's not a problem, I think it should be fully transparent. And I think that all of that information should be published online for all of the members to see. I have a real problem with this lack of transparency between supporters groups, and I have a real problem with them going in and representing a huge fan base without actually asking the fans what they want to be asked. It's not up for them to pick and choose what issues they feel like they should raise. And even if they don't agree with one of the points that the fans have a problem with, if enough of the fans have a problem with it, they should go and represent those fans. And that's how it should be. And if I was running that group and someone wanted, you know, a completely a badge change, and even if I didn't agree with it, if enough people had communicated that that's what they wanted, and if you had this communication between the board and a proper supporters group that was truly transparent, if, like you said earlier on, you really didn't like the idea of Newcastle's name changing to Newcastle Red Bull, but if enough of your supporters did turn around and it was, I don't know, 87% of fans who turned around and said, actually, this is what we want for our football club, as much as you might not like it, you all of a sudden accept it a little bit more than you would if it was just a decision that was made without consulting.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, I think, look, every fan will have a different opinion, as you said. And if you said there was like an overwhelming majority of fans wanted something done and you didn't agree with it, as much as you hate it, you probably have to live with it. But the club did try to, they kind of had their own, they have their own kind of meetings with selected fans, similar to West Ham. They used to try and do that. I think they're still trying to do that, but they haven't had a meeting in, I think, 2 years, as I've mentioned, or something along those lines. Now, when we had the meet, I think that when some of the members had a meeting, I think a lad that used to be on the channel, he was part of this group. There was certain things that he told us that weren't even on the minutes. They were missing. I think he said to us at the time they were missing about 40% of what was actually said. Yeah, I think some of them obviously, I think some of them were NDAs, but I think some of them they could put out. Like there was stuff like little things like saying that, well, we were after a centre half. I think we were after Craig Dawson. I think it was well documented anyway that we were after him, but they wouldn't want to put that in. And I just thought that was a bit strange. It's just little things like that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just going to bring in Nicky from West Ham Fan TV. He's just joined us. He's been going through a torrid time at the moment, but it looks like he's well enough to come in and have a rant here. So I'm going to bring him into the show. 1 second. Good morning, Nicky. How are you, mate?
How you doing, mate?
Me, yeah?
Yeah, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm a bit rough, mate. You know, I've been laid up a bit ill for a little while, so I'll be laid up for a little while longer. But I've just been listening. I'm working today, back to work, and excuse me if my voice. I've run out of breath quite easily because of I've still got sort of scarring inside. So yeah, I've been listening to the discussion, and I just wanted to have a say. Really, I was going to call in. I haven't got a camera set up or anything. I look rough as bollocks, so you won't want to see me anyway. But yeah, I think it's look, the discussion between the owners and stuff, and look, it's always going to be a Newcastle owner and ours battling out for, you know, who the worst owner is. I think there's no coincidence. If you look at the brands that they've built in their businesses, you look at Ashley, you look at Sports Direct, it's cheap, it's, you know, it's quantity over quality. It's, you know, he owned Wonga Loans, which was, you know, preying on the fact that, you know, poor people that couldn't afford, you know, didn't have any money in their pockets could go and lend money at an extortionate rate. It's always exposing, you know, the poor and you know, the voiceless, so to speak. You look at David Gold and David Sullivan. They've built porn stuff, you know, trashy brands. And when you look at the way they run their football club, it's always quantity over quality. Always. They get very lucky sometimes with some of the signings. With we had a magnificent player in Payet, but it was no sooner that he was through the door that he was out the door again, because he could see, you know, what was going on at the club, that there was no ambition at the club, that they didn't want to push onto this, they didn't want to push onto that. And you could say what you want to say about Marseille, and you know, he could have gone to Real Madrid. He wanted to go back home because he knew, and within a year he was playing in the UEFA Cup final. No coincidence, yes, no coincidence. And you just look at the way that they run these football clubs. They want to build these brands, but they're trying to build. I mean, you look at the industry of the sports industry, and you know what Mike Ashley does with Sports Direct. He basically bullies people out of things. He's bullied the smaller sports shops out of it. You know, the ones that can't afford to, you know, buy as much bulk stock in, and you know, the ones that are sort of trying to run a quality family-owned business, just bullied them out of it by just buying everything and selling it so cheap. You look at, you know, the porn industry. It's trashy. It's a trashy brand. You know, and Summers is probably their, you know, David Gold's biggest brand that I can remember him. You know, it's just trash. It's just a trashy brand. And the problem is with these sort of owners is they're in a world where they haven't really got the know-how to how to build a proper, and that's what you need to do to succeed in football now, is you need to build a brand. And West Ham thought that a stadium that size would be able to, you know, they thought it was going to attract investors. They thought it was going to attract, you know, players, that they would look at this big stadium and go, wow, look at this. I can't wait. They don't give a fuck. Like, excuse me, now I don't know whether you're allowed to swear on this. Sorry,
yeah, of course you can, mate. Yeah, go for it.
They don't give a monkeys about where they're playing. They play in a fucking park as long as they get their money. They don't care. And it gets to a point where you've got the 18th richest club in the world, and that has been documented for the past 3 years, turning around to everyone saying, we ain't got a penny. We ain't got a penny. You look at the difference between the infrastructure of a club like sort of Fleetwood. Did you see Fleetwood's training ground?
Yeah.
In comparison to that, I mean, I'm not joking. I went to college and I went to school, and we had better facilities than they have at their training ground, West Ham. And that is no word of a lie. My my school turned into a sports college. They had all of the pitches in. It's a similar sort of level to what they've got there. That's a Premier League club. And when you see, how can they turn around and say, they're still turning around and saying, you know, we're suffering because we spent 100 million quid 2 summers. So Fulham have been back down and back up again, and are starting to spend money again. So Leicester have been down to League One. They didn't have Premier League money for about 10 years. Wolves. They're back up. They're Wolves is the same. And it's
Everton
all about
spent a fortune under the old manager, and now they've gone and done it again.
But it's all about quality over quantity. They don't. David Sullivan runs this like he wants to run his business. He wants to get people like the likes of Jack Wilshere. Look, I was quite, pleased when we signed Jack Wilshere, but Arsenal don't let players go for nothing if they're worth anything. It's no way, you know what I mean? They're not in a million years. They knew he was on his last legs, and within football, everybody knew he was on with his last legs. It's just trying to build a brand without investing your money, and that is basically what you need to do. We went to this Olympic Stadium. We all sat through them meetings, them season ticket meetings, them ones where they was going like, oh, we'll be up there, we'll be competing with Bayern Munich, we'll be competing with Man United for the transfers. It'll allow us to spend £80 million. It'll allow us to spend £100 million on players. We all fell for that hook, line, and sinker, and that's a reason why we sort of accepted it, because we thought, okay, we're leaving the old place, but it's going to be a new chapter. Let's be honest, we're still at the old chapter, but just at a new place, because it has not changed. They're not aiming high enough. They're not willing to invest their money. And I've got an interview with David Gold, and I've shared this on Twitter a few times, where he was the owner of Birmingham, and he said, we tried our best for this football. And let's be fair, with Birmingham, they bought them for £1 million. And in 1991, they was investing £500,000 to sort of improve the squad, which was needed then, you know, and they had that sort of money. The world has passed them by a little bit. And I've got an interview with David Gold saying about Birmingham. Now, if someone comes in and offers us money and we know we can, they can progress this club to the next level, to this, to take us beyond what we can do, we'd be mad not to look at it. Now, there is reports saying that they've turned down £400 million. That's a fourfold return on their investment. Now, I know they have to pay some sort of fine or something to their DC 30% or whatever. That's on their last legs. They ain't going to be implementing them because they'll be bust before West Ham if they carry on the way they are. You know, it's a bad deal for everybody because we cannot progress as a football club with these people in charge of our football club. We cannot. It's impossible because as soon as we get a few players that are decent, you're looking at Declan Rice now. If he's not gone to Chelsea by the time this transfer window is finished, I'll be very surprised with the sort of money they're talking about. You've got David Sullivan. We've seen these tricks over the years with Brown and the Kearns and everything else. We see Harry Redknapp with Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand's the one I keep going back to because I remember about 3 days before we sold Rio Ferdinand, Redknapp turned around and said, you know, we don't want to sell Rio. Rio's not for sale. You know, we want to keep our best players here, etc., etc., etc. But one day, someone a bit too much. We can't refuse the money. 3 days later, they put an extra £3 million on top, and he was gone. He was on his way to Leeds, and that basically what that. I mean, that Sullivan. I haven't had a chance to ever say about that Sullivan interview that he did on TalkSport because I've been in hospital and I've been too sick. You know, I've had operations and everything else. But when you look at what he said in that talk, it is an absolute car crash. He's absolutely embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed the club, and that is another reason why we can't progress because people are just annoyed with the way they do business.
Bang on.
Do you think, Nicky, that supporters group can have a part to play in this? Do you think they can help? I don't think the ones that we've got at the moment have got that model right at the moment, and I think that they're not really run in the way that they should be. But do you think if a supporters group was done in the right way and did actually help try and give the fans a voice and be a bridge between the owners and the fans, do you think that can benefit in this sort of situation anyway, or do you think the owners are just no good and nothing could help?
Nick, just before you answer that,
yeah,
do you think, Frankie, that the owners of this football club would actually allow that, firstly?
I'm not asking that question. I'm asking whether or not if there was a bridge between the owners of a football club and with something that was fully transparent that allowed supporters to actually ask questions and communicate their issues, and if that group actually did take that to people at a club who could make those changes, because that's what's important. It's no point in that group talking to someone at the club who it's just going to fall on deaf ears that ain't actually going to go and make those changes. I'm talking about if the fans had enough of an issue with a certain situation and it was raised and it went to the club and the club actually listened, is that going to help moving forward? And yes, you've got to have owners who are prepared to listen and prepared to make change. But I'm asking, if that was done in that way, can it be a benefit and can it stop some of these issues that fans are having with their owners? I mean, Johnny said it, there's no communication. Every other fan says it, there's no communication. I mean, the biggest thing is that. No, I don't think it is football, because I think Leicester fans don't feel that way. Even though their owners are not 100% always there every day, they're millionaires who are off in other countries and everything else, I think Leicester fans still feel appreciated and like they have some sort of a voice. So it isn't just football, it's how can we sort this situation out of fans being completely distant and divided from the football clubs that they love.
I don't think a club can actually stop that, by the way, just before I let Nicky can answer, but I don't think a club can actually stop a supporters trust or any supporter trust trying to get answers from fans, because I think it's part of what the Premier League or even the EFL, they've got to have some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Discussions. They've got to have some sort of communication with the club. I think it's part of every manual that they've got. But it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Can I just chuck in there, Johnny? Because one of the problems that West Ham have had in the past is the fact that they do try and block this support, and they've been sort of scalded by the FSA and all of the governing bodies. But the problem with the governing bodies of this sort of thing is they haven't really got any real powers. They're a bit like the financial ombudsman. The ombudsman can turn around and say, well, no, that's not the best practice. But in reality, they've got no sort of powers to enforce anything. They can just say, look, this is not fair practice. And if it was to go to court or anything, then they could sort of use that advice in their favour. So they have had that sort of thing. The FSA have been very critical. The problem is with the FSA, I don't know who the FSA are. I don't know who they are. I would not be able to tell you a single person that's on the FSA and etc. etc. And I've heard from supporters group that the FSA have put things forward for West Ham, and they shouldn't be doing that. So there's something going on there as well. There's something going on. Look, I don't care what walk of life you're in. If enough, and I'm not accusing anyone, so I'm just saying this legally, so you're not going to get sued on this channel. But if someone offers someone something for nothing, minds can easily be swayed. That's all I would say with that sort of thing. But what I would say in support in the supporters strike, I think that this is my personal opinion, is that, and me personally, I like Hammers United. I really like Hammers United. I think they've got some people in there that have got the fans at heart. Have they always had the right structure? Not really. I don't think anybody's had the right structure at the minute, but I know that they are. I'm in communication with some of the leaders of that group, and I know that they are trying to change things so they have got that structure. But I tell you what, the problem is with the previous ones, and I don't mind naming them, but I won't because of respect to you. I would name them on my channel, but I won't name them on here. It's the fact that a lot of these people are full of their own self-importance. They want to know. They want to put forward their agenda. They don't want to ask people. There's certain fan groups out there that they profuse to be democratic. And I know for a fact that they've put things forward to the club and met the club, not without telling their members, without telling their fans. And that is the problem with West Ham, is that there's too many people that are in and about. I've got loads of stories. I've got loads of secret stories that I wouldn't let out publicly, just because. I just can't be fucking asked to get involved in all of that. Because if I started fighting, I'll end up fighting it for forever and ever and ever.
Nick, you're right. There's too many people that want to say it was me that made that change.
Yeah, exactly. I've been into meetings. Right? I've been into meetings, and some of the things that are that have been implemented since I went to meetings, and I completely. I got involved in that a couple of years ago. It all went tits up. I took a lot of the blame because I'm a public face and I'm and I'm this and I'm that. Look, I don't hide behind the fact that maybe we done some things wrong, but that made me realise maybe I shouldn't really be getting involved in this sort of shit. I can't talk for everybody, and I can't. My intentions were proper, but I didn't do it the right way, and there was people that didn't do it the right way, and I do understand that there are sort of other factors involved in all of this collapsing and all of that sort of thing, which I don't want to get into. But I can tell you right now, it was nothing to do with me. I always had the West Ham fans at heart and all of that sort of thing. So I just, we've got a YouTube channel. We like to give people opinions like this channel. So we do that way, and people can derive from that what they like. I don't get involved in the politics, but there are too many people in this football club, like fans of this football club, that Gold and Sullivan they favour. They always want them involved in the decisions when it comes to fans, because they know that they can, and for want of a better word, they can bribe them. They can bribe them to influence things the way that they want things to go. There are people I could reel off a list of names now. I won't, because as I say, I don't want to get involved in that sort of things that are not completely 100% for the fans. They will say things and try and influence things the way they want to go because they get favours in return. And how can you sit there on a board of some of them have been parts of these fan groups, some of them have been voted out, then voted back in. So how can you turn around and say them people are I'll give it a little bit, how can you say these people are independent when you know for a fact that they are getting favours from within the club? How can you do that? They can't. And the problem is with these people, they sit in their little meetings, they sit there, you know, they've got 3,000 fucking members. It went up a lot a couple of years ago when they fucking, you know, they started to sort of leech off the back of things and you know, tell journalists things and all of that sort of thing and make it look like they was the heroes. But how can you sit there and say you're independent when you've got 3,000 people voting? They're charging for a membership. In my mind, they can stick out their ass. I don't want nothing to do with it. They just can't. They can't represent these. They can't represent us. They don't know. They go to these people because I'll be honest with you. I'm from a different place. I'm from Canning Town. I grew up in and around West Ham, and I'm not saying you have to be, but I grew up in and around West Ham. I know a lot of the old school faces over there, and you know, I grew up in a certain way and I went with certain people and everything else. But what I'm saying is they want these middle class people. I mean, I had a real problem with somebody because he said a few things. I said a few things recently on a forum that we sort of made our peace, but you know, he's sitting there and calling me all sorts of names he's calling me scum, for want of a better word. And my son read it and he got very upset, and that's when I stepped away from it all and I said, I'm not putting my family through this. But they want these old school fans, you know, the heart and the blood of the supporters gone, because they want to have they like going over to London Stadium and eating in restaurants in Westfields and all that. For me, that's not my idea of football. And I know that we've got families and everything else. You know, since I become a football fan, I've become a father myself. And like, you know, a couple of years ago when people were punching the skin off of each other over things, I didn't want to take my son there. But how can you turn around and say you represent the fans when you're charging people to be part of your club? That's not what it's all about. They've tried this OSB. The OSB lost my. You know what? I was willing to give the OSB a bit of a break at the start, but once I see certain people getting to, I go home and away. I know who goes home and I know who goes away. And when I see certain people getting tickets for, you know, games that you really can't get tickets for, that I've even struggled to get tickets for, and I'm seeing a couple of these sort of members of these independent associations walking in there when I know for a fact they ain't going up to Burnley on a Tuesday night, or Wolves on a Wednesday night, or Man City on a Thursday night. I know where them tickets are coming from. You don't have to tell me twice. You know, I know that they're getting their tickets as favours and all of that sort of thing. So when it comes to that sort of independence and all that, this OSB thing, which wasn't democratically voted, they got Colton Cole and Trevor Brooking to pick them. All respect for them. I love Colton Cole. I love Trevor Brooking. They know fuck all about fans. They know nothing. They know how to be involved in a football club. They know how to play football. But in terms of fans, they don't know nothing. So how can you get these people picking an OSB, which is, you know, they know nothing about? And they pick, obviously, they're going to be influenced by the club. And when they got in the OSB, if there was any sort of stragglers, anyone that wanted to go against the grain, they tried to dig up dirt on them and sling them out. They've done it to a very good friend of mine. So just so they can have their little boys, which I call a little boys sandwich club. And that's the thing about these independent supporters association. They can help, but there's too many people there that want to feel, instead of wanting to help the fans, they want to feel important themselves.
Yeah.
Bang on,
Nicky,
Nick.
thanks for jumping in, mate. I really appreciate it.
Nicky, I don't know if you've seen, before you go, mate, I don't know if you've seen the comments, you might not have, but there's been a lot of people sending their love and well wishes and wishing you speedy recovery as well. And have said what you said is bang on as well, mate, just, you know.
Yeah, all the best, Nicky.
No, thanks everyone. Nice to meet you, Johnny.
Nice
What's up, man? Take care, mate.
Well, chaps, I think that really does sort of give us a good place to finish up. We've been on here a while now. Johnny, anything else that you want to sort of summarise? Anything you want to throw in just at the end here of what we've gone through? And I guess, you know, do you see yourself as a different situation to ours completely with your ownership? Have we got different problems, do you think, to what you've got? Oh, he's gone.
He hates you. He's going to get elected onto the new fan board at Newcastle.
He's going to set one up, I reckon. He's coming back now, mate. He's just here. Let's summarise and let's get this done.
Apologies, lads.
That's all right, mate.
I think both clubs are similar in terms of I think similar, but have got different problems. But I think one thing that we both can say is that if Newcastle and West Ham can get everything put in place in their own house, I think they might do okay in the future.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, mate. Baz, you've got to be a little bit more positive on that situation as well, mate. Because not positive in a way that we're accepting the rubbish that's going on at the moment. Just not positive was the wrong word. A little bit of belief that West Ham will rise again one day, mate. Because I think we will.
I'll sit and tell you now, whether you want to read this or not, West Ham will not rise under its current ownership. It will the day they walk out. And I said this on the channel the other week. The day that happens will be the biggest party ever. Bigger than winning the FA Cup back in 1980. That will be the biggest party you see at this football club. The day that name, Sullivan and Gold and Brady, them names I should say, have no relevance to West Ham United Football Club. Until then, we're fucked. They're the cancer of the club. That's true.
It will come. It just happened to Charlton when everything looked like it could never happen, and there was sanctions, and it was all over. They managed it, so we'll do it again.
Wilson has just made a great point about Manchester United. Why are they not in this conversation? And this is what I say about supporters groups.
So Baz, this is part one. We're talking to Leicester coming up, which is going to be more the positive spin it. So we've got an interview with Leicester coming up. We'll get Sunderland on as well to talk about what they've been through. So this is only part one. So there'll be a lot of clubs that will come on and a lot of clubs we'll talk to. We'll even talk to Arsenal because Arsenal was some positives and some negatives. It was a real middle ground one. So yeah, there'll be more of these as we go on over the weeks.
Cool on again. Johnny, top man, thanks for joining us.
No problem, lads. All the best to you, okay?
You got a game this week or not?
Yeah, we've got Newport in the Cup on Wednesday, and then
tough draw.
Burnley at home on a Saturday night, so I'm sure you'll all be switching on for that one.
West Ham got a lot of affinity with Newport. We're quite friendly with Newport, mate, so I might not be on your side for that one.
No, Liam, no, I'm not getting Ty on. Not a chance. I'm going to try and get Joe on from Cheeky Sport.
Yeah, and we will try and get Birmingham on as well because that would be good. Chaps, have a good one. Thank you ever so much for today. And let's hope we all get what we want in the end.
Cheers, lads. Thanks very much.
All the best. See you later. Thank you.